Good morning! It is time for some more perfect tense, guys. I don't know about you, but I am super excited. So let's go. I'm going to start by reviewing. So far, we know 3 different tenses in Latin. We know the present tense, we know the imperfect tense, and we know the perfect tense. I'm not going to go through this entirely, but I do just want to point out that in Latin you can tell different tenses by tense indicators. Present has no tense indicator. This is just what you see generally in your vocab list. But for the imperfect and the perfect tenses, your tense indicators come in the form of ba or ba for imperfect and a v for perfect, which you see between the stem over here, which kind of tells you what the verb's meaning is, and the ending, which tells you who's doing it. Sandwiched in between there is the tense indicator, which tells you when this happened. If you are unfamiliar with this stuff, then take a second and copy down in your notes this table. I know it is extensive, but it will be very helpful for you in the future to refer back to as you work with it. If you want to do that, pause the video now because I'm about to move on. Okay, so put simply, we're focusing on the perfect tense. So put simply, when something is in the present tense, it is translated as verbs, and there's no tense indicator. And when a verb is in the perfect tense, it is translated as verbed, ed, and the tense indicator is a v. Well, gee willikers, Mr. Hodges, is it really that easy? No, child, it is not, and I'm very sorry. It is not that simple. But it's very similar to English, which we are all pretty good at here. Like English, Latin can't always have just one simple pattern to memorize. Consider these examples below. So we have the verb in English, cooks. Well, when it's in its perfect form, you say cooked. Like, he cooks the meal, that's happening now. Or, one time in the past, he cooked a meal. And that's done. And it happened in the past, and he's not cooking anymore. Okay? Well, if the guy runs now, okay. Well, in the past, if he's done running, then he runned, right? No! He ran. What about now? The guy is thinking, or he thinks, or they think. So in the past, is it thinked? No! No, it's not. It's thought. There are tons of different ways that we show in English that something is in the perfect tense. We don't really think about it because most of us have been taught this way since we were a kid. We didn't have an English class to tell us that. We just understood it. Unfortunately, we're past the point of just understanding things. Our brains don't work that way anymore. So we now have to think about it. But fortunately, no language, or well, Latin at the very least, is not as complicated as English. There are not as many forms to memorize. So there are a lot of ways to show the perfect tense in English. In Latin, there are only about 5, sometimes 6, and we'll talk about it. Whereas, as opposed to the, literally hundreds of ways to do it in English. So when put in that perspective, it's not that bad. So I want you guys to look at the stage 7 vocabulary if you have it in front of you. If you don't, that's okay. You have this slide right here. This will help. So we have a series of, these are 5 verbs from the current vocab list for this week. We have the verb cannot, which looks a lot like cana, which is good because it means cooks, whereas cana means dinner. In the perfect tense, it turns into canawit. That familiar V is the tense indicator right there in the middle. And when you translate it in English, it is cooked. Okay, simple enough. Well, let's move down. So we have this new verb, conspicit, which means catches sight of. Kind of like you look at something out of the corner of your eye. Well, in the perfect tense, it changes into conspexit. Notice how the X is highlighted in red here. I've highlighted all the tense indicators in red and bolded them so they're easy to see. In this one, it is an X, and when you translate it in English, it is caught sight of. Notice how in English we don't say catched sight of. We say caught. In Latin, down here, we have procedit, which means advances or proceeds. You can kind of see that proceeds is a derivative of procedit, meaning like moving forward. Well, when it's in the perfect tense, you say processit. And that's how we have now turns into two S's. Notice how this looks a lot like process. That's a derivative for later on. But when you translate it in the perfect tense, it is advanced or proceeded. This next verb, terret, translates into terrifies. So like if you terrify somebody or if he terrifies someone else, that would be terret. In the perfect tense, it transforms into terruit. That tense indicator is now a U, and the translation is terrified. And then probably everybody's favorite verb from this stage is facit, which means makes or does. We get words like manufacture from this. In the perfect tense, it changes into fecit, which means made or did. Notice that these are two more irregular perfect tenses. In these 5 ways right here are kind of encapsulate all the different ways that the perfect tense can take hold. But don't freak out, because there are several ways that will help you understand and see these different forms. So, whereas before we knew the rule of the Latin perfect tense to be, the rule for the perfect tense is that there's a V in it. Well, now we know it as the rule for the perfect tense is V, except when it's an S, an SS, a U, an X, or an initial vowel change, like in fecit, where the A turns into an E. Luckily, there's a mnemonic device. It's kind of out there, but if you just say Superman has X-ray vision, then you have encapsulated all the different ways you have all the different letters at your disposal that show you the perfect tense, and they're highlighted in red. The S, the U, the second S for the SS, the X, and the V. Since it is a notable pain in the butt to derive these perfect tenses, that in Latin dictionaries and your vocab list are set up to show you the different forms and how it changes, because it's not always consistent. There's not just one pattern that we can figure out. Actually, there is one, but we'll get to it later. Most commonly, and I do just want to say this, it is a V. About 45 to 50% of the time, it is the tense indicator. You're looking for a V, that'll tell you it's perfect. But a lot of the time, still, that's 45, 50%. That means the other half of the time, it's not. It can be one of those other 4 forms. So, there are 2 ways. One that's most common will be your vocab list. That's in the back of your packet. From stage 6 on the vocab list, you'll notice that, and here's a picture of it over here, you'll notice that different forms will start to be added to these as we're introduced to them in the book. Notice here how all the verbs have 2 forms. In this example, you will see that you have that's an adjective. We won't worry about that. Here's conspicuous, like we saw on the last slide, and notice how on the other side there's a colon and on the other side you have conspexit. On the left side, the first form you'll see, and the first form you'll always see, is the present tense. That's what we call its most basic form. And then on the right side of this colon, you'll see conspexit, which is the perfect form. Check out this over here. It'll be given to you in this format, the present form and the perfect form. It's important to study and understand both so you're kind of ready for it. And then the second way is like in Latin dictionaries, both online and offline. They'll display verbs in a series in 4 different ways. They're called the 4 principal parts of the verb. You'll see this example here. We have lacrimo, lacrimare, lacrimavit, and lacrimatus. Only the first part, principal part, and the third principal part are of any concern to us right now. The first principal part is the first person singular present form. So we have lacrimo, which means cries. Lacrimo, that O ending, is first person. So that means I cry. Over here, we have in the third principal part, we have lacrimavit, which is the perfect form, which means it ends in a T, so it means he, she, or it cried. I understand if this is confusing for you. That's why I made it a video, so you can go back and re-watch at any point if you need. But additionally, as we're going through this, you're going to, in our translations and in our practice sentences, you're going to encounter perfect tense verbs, and you're going to come up and ask me, hey, what does this verb mean? This doesn't look like anything in our vocab. And I'll just say, oh, that's just the perfect form of that. It happens all the time. It's okay. It comes with practice. Everything will be fine. Stop crying. Just kidding. Okay. So, in conclusion, rule number 1, like in English, the perfect tense can take many different costumes in Latin, a bunch of different tense indicators. That can be memorized by this mnemonic device. Superman has X-ray vision to remember the V, the X, the S, the double S, the U, and the U. And then lastly, really the only thing you can do is study both the present and perfect forms in your vocab lists. On vocab quizzes in the future, I'll start to look more for perfect forms, and we'll cover that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I hope that you guys have a great weekend. Since I'm recording this at 4:15 on the Friday, that you guys are out. And just let me know if you have any questions. Godspeed.